The Judgment Hall of the Galactic Council was the largest structure ever built by living beings. It stretched upward for miles, its walls made of crystal that had been grown over thousands of years. 900 species had seats in this hall. 900 flags hung from the ceiling. 900 different forms of life watched as the human delegation walked toward the center of the room. Ambassador David Nash felt every eye upon him. Some of those eyes were like his own. Others glowed with inner light. Some species had no eyes at all, but sensed the world through vibrations in the air. All of them were watching. All of them were waiting. The platform at the center of the hall floated above an endless darkness. It was designed this way on purpose. The council wanted visitors to feel small. They wanted visitors to understand their place in the universe. David stepped onto the platform alone. His aide, a young woman named Grace, remained at the edge of the hall with the rest of the human team. She caught his eye and gave him a small nod. He did not smile back. There was nothing to smile about. High Speaker Torvax of the Velen Empire rose from his seat. He was tall and thin, with silver skin that reflected the light like a mirror. His voice filled the hall without any need for amplification. The Galactic Council recognizes the presence of the human delegation from the planet called Earth. You have been summoned to answer for your crimes against the established order. David said nothing. He simply stood and listened. The charges are as follows, Torvax continued. Unauthorized development of faster-than-light travel. Unauthorized colonization of 7 worlds in the outer regions. Unauthorized contact with 3 protected species. And most seriously, the development of weapons technology that exceeds the limits set by the Council for species of your classification. The hall erupted in whispers. David could hear the clicking and buzzing and humming of 900 different languages being translated simultaneously. Torvax raised one long arm for silence. You were given membership in this council 100 years ago. You were given laws to follow. You were given boundaries to respect. And you have violated every single one of them. He leaned forward, his silver face showing what might have been contempt. What do you have to say for yourself, human? David looked up at the High Speaker. Then he looked around the hall, at the hundreds of alien faces staring down at him. He saw the Drell with their stone bodies. He saw the Manta with their wings folded against their backs. He saw the Centauri, beings of pure energy contained in mechanical shells. He saw power. He saw age. He saw species that had traveled the stars when humans were still living in caves. And then David Nash did something that no one expected. He removed the translation device from his ear. He placed it carefully on the platform beneath his feet. And he turned and walked away. The hall exploded into chaos. What is the meaning of this? Torvax shouted. You cannot simply leave. You are required to answer these charges. But David kept walking. Grace fell into step beside him as he reached the edge of the hall. The other members of the human delegation followed without a word. Behind them, a holographic message flickered to life above the empty platform. It displayed text in every language known to the Council. We came seeking friendship. You gave us chains. We asked for partnership. You gave us punishment. So we will go now. Do not follow us. Do not contact us. When you are ready to treat us as equals, you know where to find us. Until then, goodbye. The message faded. The human delegation disappeared through the great doors of the Judgment Hall. And for the first time in 8,000 years, the Galactic Council did not know what to do. High Speaker Torvax called an emergency session within the hour. The vote was quick and almost unanimous. Humanity would be sanctioned. Their colonies would be blockaded. Their ships would be stopped and searched. Their economy would be strangled until they came crawling back to beg for forgiveness. They are children, Torvax declared. "They do not understand how the universe works. In 3 months, they will return to this hall on their knees." The council agreed. This was how things had always been done. Young species rose up, challenged the established order, and were brought back into line. It had happened 1,000 times before. It would happen 1,000 times again. But deep in the observation gallery, where the junior representatives of lesser species watched the proceedings, Ambassador Yenna of the Corvani saw something the others missed. She was small, her skin translucent and glowing with soft light. Her species had joined the council only 200 years ago. They knew what it felt like to be treated as inferior. She had watched David Nash carefully. She had seen his face as he removed his translator. She had seen his eyes as he walked away. That was not the face of a defeated man. That was not the face of someone who had lost. That was the face of someone who had been waiting for this moment. Someone who had planned for it. Someone who knew exactly what would happen next. Why, ENNA felt a chill run through her luminescent body. She did not know what the humans were planning. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. The council had made a terrible mistake. 3 weeks later, the first reports came in from the outer regions. A Velan patrol ship had discovered something impossible at the site of a human colony. A colony was empty. Not abandoned in panic, but methodically dismantled. Every building had been taken apart. Every piece of technology had been removed. Even the soil had been treated to remove any trace of human presence. It was as if humanity had never been there at all. Captain Vorn of the patrol ship transmitted his findings with growing unease. They did not flee, High Speaker. They erased themselves. What are our orders? Proceed to the next colony, Torvax replied. Document everything. The next colony was the same. And the next? And the next. All 7 human settlements had been surgically removed from existence. And Earth itself had gone silent. No transmissions. No signals. Nothing. 3 billion humans had vanished from the galaxy. And the Galactic Council, for all its power and all its wisdom, had no idea where they had gone. In his private chambers, High Speaker Torvax stood before a window that looked out upon the stars. He had ruled this council for 500 years. He had seen species rise and fall. He had guided the galaxy through wars and plagues and disasters, but he had never seen anything like this. The humans had not begged. They had not fought. They had simply ... left ... and somehow that was more terrifying than anything else they could have done. What are you planning? Torvax whispered to the darkness between the stars. What do you know that we do not? The stars gave no answer. But somewhere, far beyond the reach of council sensors, humanity was watching. Humanity was waiting. And humanity was ready. The cargo ship Starlight Wanderer drifted dead in the void between stars. Her engines had gone cold. Her navigation systems displayed nothing but error messages. Her captain, a Drell named Corvos, stared at his console with disbelief carved into his stone face. This cannot be happening, he rumbled. His species communicated through vibrations in rock, but even in standard speech, his voice sounded like grinding boulders. Run the diagnostic again. His first officer, a younger Drell named Belos, shook his massive head. I have run it 17 times, Captain. The result is always the same. Our navigation database has been corrupted. Every star chart, every trade route, every coordinate is gone. How is this possible? These systems were designed by the finest engineers in the council. Bellows hesitated. His crystalline eyes flickered with something that looked like fear. Captain, I have been analyzing the corrupted code. It was not designed by council engineers. The core architecture, the fundamental structure of everything, it was designed by humans. The bridge fell silent. The other crew members stopped what they were doing and turned to listen. The humans? Corvos could not believe what he was hearing. The humans designed our navigation systems? Not just navigation. Bellows pulled up a display showing the ship's primary systems. Red warning lights covered almost every section. Life support uses human atmospheric modeling. Our communication arrays use human signal protocols. Even our artificial gravity is based on human calculations. That is impossible. We have been traveling the stars for 8,000 years. The humans have only been spacefaring for 300. Yes, Captain. But they were very helpful during those 300 years. They offered to improve our systems. They offered to make them more efficient. And we accepted because their improvements worked. Corvos felt the weight of understanding settle upon him like a mountain. We let them into everything. We invited them in, Bellows corrected quietly. We thought they were being useful servants. We never imagined they were making themselves necessary. Across the galaxy, the same realization was spreading like a plague. Ships stranded in deep space. Stations losing power. Entire planets watching their infrastructure fail piece by piece. The humans had spent 100 years quietly inserting themselves into the foundation of galactic civilization. They had smiled and nodded and accepted every insult the Council threw at them. They had worked in the shadows, improving systems that no one bothered to examine too closely. And now they were gone, and everything they had built was falling apart. In the council chamber, High Speaker Torvax listened to the reports with growing horror. Ambassador Rella of the Manta delegation delivered the economic analysis. Her wings folded tight against her body in distress. 73% of all interstellar trade relied on human logistics algorithms. Without them, our supply chains are collapsing. Food shipments are not reaching their destinations. Medical supplies are rotting in warehouses because no one knows where to send them. At current rates, we will face widespread famine within 6 months. This must be an attack, declared General Voss of the Centauri Collective. His mechanical shell hummed with barely contained energy. The humans have planted sabotage programs in our systems. We must find them and force them to undo this damage. It is not sabotage, said a quiet voice from the back of the chamber. Everyone turned to look at Ambassador Yenna of the Corvani. She was small and fragile-looking compared to the powerful species around her. But her bioluminescent skin glowed with steady confidence. "You may speak," Torvax said reluctantly. Yenna descended to the speaker's platform. "I have been studying human behavior since they first joined the council. I was curious about them. They seemed so eager to help, so willing to accept any task we gave them. I wondered why." "Because they knew their place," Voss interrupted. "Because they understood that superior species must be served." "No." Yenna's glow brightened with intensity. "Because they were planning this from the beginning. Every improvement they offered, every system they designed, every protocol they created was part of a larger strategy. They were not serving us. They were making us dependent on them." The chamber erupted in angry denial. How dare this insignificant species suggest that the mighty council had been manipulated? But Yenna stood firm. "Think about it. For 100 years, humans accepted every restriction we placed on them. They followed every law, obeyed every command, smiled through every insult. Does that sound like the behavior of a species that just developed? Faster than light travel on their own despite all our efforts to stop them?" The anger in the chamber began to shift into something else. Something colder. "They were never weak," Yenna continued. "They were patient. They studied us. They learned our weaknesses. And when we finally pushed them too far, when we threatened to destroy everything they had built, they simply removed themselves from the equation. And now we fall." High Speaker Torvax gripped the arms of his chair until his silver knuckles turned white. If what you say is true, then we must find them. We must negotiate. We must offer them whatever they want to come back. I do not think they want anything from us, Yenna replied sadly. I think they just want to be left alone. And I think they have made sure that we cannot follow them. She was right. Every probe sent to search for humanity returned with nothing. Every sensor sweep came back empty. Every attempt to trace their departure trajectory failed. 3 billion humans had disappeared into the vastness of space, and the galaxy had no idea where they had gone. On Earth, deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, David Nash stood in a command center filled with holographic displays. Each display showed a different part of the galaxy. Each display showed chaos and confusion and fear. Beside him stood General Maya Torres, the commander of Earth's hidden military forces. She watched the screens with an expression that was hard to read. They are suffering, she said quietly. Millions will die if this continues. Millions have already died because of their laws, David replied. His voice was calm, but heavy with old pain. How many human colonies were destroyed because we expanded too quickly? How many human ships were impounded because we traded with the wrong species? How many human children grew up being told they were inferior? I know. But still, we offered them friendship, Maya. We offered them partnership. We spent 100 years proving that we could be trusted, and they repaid us by putting us on trial like criminals. He turned to face her directly. We are not doing this out of revenge. We are doing this because they left us no other choice. They would never have treated us as equals, while they believed they controlled us. So we showed them the truth. And what happens now? David looked back at the screens, at the burning stations and the stranded ships and the panicking politicians. Now we wait. We wait for them to understand what they have lost. We wait for them to choose between their pride and their survival. He paused, and we hope they choose wisely, because if they do not, there is nothing more we can do for them. 6 months after humanity's departure, the galaxy received a message. It came from somewhere beyond the edge of mapped space, from a region that had been declared uninhabitable centuries ago. The message was short. It was calm, and it changed everything. This is Ambassador David Nash of the United Human Territories. We have watched your struggles with interest, but not pleasure. We take no joy in your suffering. We offer you a choice. You may continue as you are, slowly falling apart under the weight of systems you never understood. Or you may come to us as equals, ready to build something new together. The coordinates of our new home are attached. Our door is open. But know this, we will never again be your servants. We will never again be your foundation without our consent. The choice is yours. In the council chamber, High Speaker Torvax read the message 3 times. Then he looked up at the 900 species, watching him with desperate eyes. For the first time in 500 years, he did not know what to say. The humans had not simply left the galaxy. They had inherited it. General Voss had commanded the Centauri War Fleet for 400 years. He had conquered a dozen species. He had crushed rebellions across 100 worlds. Nothing in the galaxy could surprise him anymore, not until now. The coordinates humanity had provided led to the void expanse, a region of darkness between galaxies where no star burned and no life could survive. Every sensor reading confirmed what the Council had always known. There was nothing here. Nothing could exist here. And yet, as the Centauri flagship emerged from faster-than-light travel, General Voss found himself staring at the impossible. A star burned in the void. A star that had not existed 6 months ago. A star that the humans had created from nothing. Around that star orbited 12 worlds. 12 worlds covered in cities and forests and oceans. 12 worlds that teemed with 3 billion human lives. And surrounding it all, a defense network so vast and so powerful that Voss's tactical officer simply shut down his console and walked away from his station. "We cannot fight this," the officer said. His mechanical voice carried no emotion, but his energy fluctuations betrayed his fear. "We could bring every ship in the Council's combined fleet, and we could not scratch their shields." A communication request flashed on the main screen. Voss accepted it with trembling manipulators. A human woman appeared. She had dark skin and kind eyes, and a gentle smile that seemed completely out of place in this moment. She wore no uniform and carried no weapons. "Welcome to New Dawn, General Voss. I am Director Clara Okongwo of the Human Diplomatic Corps. Ambassador Nash sends his greetings and invites you to dock at Station 7. You and your crew will be treated as honored guests." Voss found his voice. "How is any of this possible? You have been gone 6 months. 6 months. How could you build all of this?" Clara's smile grew slightly wider. "General, we have been preparing for this moment for far longer than 6 months. Far longer than you know. Please dock your ship. We have much to discuss." The delegation that boarded the human station included Voss, High Speaker Torvax, Ambassador Yenna, and representatives from a dozen major species. They were escorted through corridors of gleaming metal and living crystal. They passed through gardens that floated in zero gravity and laboratories filled with technology they could not comprehend. Their guide was a human man named Professor James Whitfield. He was old by human standards, with white hair and weathered skin, but his eyes burned with sharp intelligence. "I imagine you have questions," he said as they entered a vast museum filled with artifacts and displays. "Many questions," Torvax replied. His silver face showed no expression, but his voice was tight with controlled emotion. "Beginning with how this is possible." James stopped before a holographic display showing ancient star maps. 200,000 years ago, humanity achieved faster-than-light travel for the first time. We explored the galaxy. We met other species. We made friends and enemies. The delegation exchanged shocked glances. 200,000 years? That would make humanity one of the oldest spacefaring civilizations in the galaxy. We also made a discovery, James continued. A terrible discovery. In the heart of the galaxy, we found the ruins of a civilization that had once ruled everything. They called themselves the Architects. They were so powerful, so advanced, that they had created the foundations of galactic society itself. The communication protocols you use, the mathematics you use for navigation, even the genetic engineering that gave rise to species like the Velen. The Architects are a myth, Voss protested. Stories told to children. They were real, and they were destroyed, not by an enemy, but by themselves. They grew so dependent on their own power, so certain of their own superiority, that they never saw the collapse coming. Ross the fleet. Many captains are questioning the attack. Questioning? Draxus snarled. "We are here to crush our enemies." "Sir, the Corvani are not our enemies. They have never been our enemies. They are scholars, teachers. They have never harmed anyone. They allied with the humans. They allied with the species that protected us all for 200,000 years. The officer's voice was quiet but steady. "Sir, I have served you faithfully for 40 years. But I cannot be part of this." He removed his insignia and placed it on his console. "I resign." Within the hour, half of the Dominion fleet had withdrawn from the system. Not to join the coalition, but to go home. To protect their own families. To wait and see what happened next. And across the galaxy, the same scene played out 1,000 times. Soldiers refusing to fire. Officers disobeying orders. Citizens demanding peace. Ambassador Yenna watched in amazement as the remaining Dominion ships turned and fled. She did not understand what had happened. She did not know why she was still alive. But on New Dawn, David Nash watched the same scene with tears streaming down his face. "They chose," Clara whispered beside him. "They actually chose." "Not all of them," David replied. "Not yet, but enough. Enough to matter." He wiped his eyes and straightened his shoulders. "The war is not over. Draxus will not give up so easily. But today, for the first time, I believe we might actually succeed." "Succeed at what?" David looked at the screens showing the galaxy in turmoil, showing species fighting and dying and struggling to find a new way. "Succeed at proving that we were right. That kindness is stronger than cruelty. That partnership is stronger than dominance. That love, in the end, is stronger than fear." He turned to face Clara with something like hope in his eyes. Today, the galaxy took its first real step toward growing up. And tomorrow, we will help them take another. In the wreckage of the Corvani defense platform, Ambassador Yenna sent a message to New Dawn. It contained only 3 words. "Thank you. Always." David Nash read the message and smiled. "No," he whispered to himself. "Thank you for showing us that 200,000 years of waiting was worth it." The galaxy was still broken. The war was still burning. But for the first time in a very long time, there was hope. 1 year had passed since the day Ambassador Yenna refused to die in silence. 1 year since the Dominion fleet turned back. 1 year since the galaxy began to change. The old council chamber had been torn down. In its place stood something new, a simple circle of equal seats arranged around a garden of plants from 1,000 worlds. No more platforms suspended over darkness. No more species looking down on others. Just equals sitting together, learning to be family. Director Clara Okonkwo stood at the entrance, watching the delegates take their places. Ambassador Yenna walked beside her, her bioluminescent skin glowing with peaceful light. "It feels strange," Yenna said softly. 1 year ago, I was ready to die. Today, I stand where my species was once too insignificant to be heard." "The galaxy has changed," Clara replied. "More in 1 year than in the past 8,000. Because of you. Because of humanity." Clara shook her head. "No, because of Ambassador Yenna of the Corvani, who showed everyone what courage looks like. Because of the officers who refused to fire. Because of the billions who decided that fear was no longer acceptable." She smiled gently. "We did not save the galaxy. You saved yourselves. We just helped create the conditions." Yenna's glow brightened. "Is that not what gardeners do?" Ambassador David Nash took the floor for the first session of the Reformed Galactic Assembly. He looked older than he had a year ago. Not in his body, but in his soul. Watching a civilization tear itself apart and rebuild had aged him in ways that did not show on his face. "Fellow beings of the galaxy," he began, "I stand before you not as a representative of a superior species, but as a partner in a shared journey." He paused, gathering his thoughts. For 200,000 years, humanity watched over this galaxy in secret. We believed we knew what was best for you. We thought that if we protected you long enough, guided you carefully enough, you would become the beings you are capable of becoming. We were wrong. A murmur ran through the assembly. We were right about your potential. Every species in this chamber has proven that over the past year. The courage, the generosity, the willingness to change. Everything we hoped you would become, you became. But not because we forced you to. Because you chose to. We were wrong about our role. We thought we were your guardians, your protectors, your parents. He smiled sadly. The truth is, you never needed parents. You needed partners, equals, friends who would challenge you and support you and trust you to make your own choices. That is what we want to be now. Not your guardians, your partners. Not your teachers, your fellow students. Not your rulers, your friends. He extended his hand. Let us begin again. Not as master and servant, but as family. The Reformation was not easy. It could never be easy. Warlord Draxus and his remaining followers retreated to Morgani space and sealed their borders. They refused all contact with the outside galaxy. Some said they were planning revenge. Others said they were simply hiding from their own shame. No one knew for certain. Economic reconstruction was a nightmare. The systems humanity had built over millennia had to be rebuilt from scratch. This time with transparency. This time with technology shared freely. This time with every species contributing. Old wounds festered. Species that had been oppressed struggled to forgive their oppressors. Species that had done the oppressing struggled to admit their guilt. Anger flared. Arguments exploded. Progress came slowly, painfully, one small step at a time. But it came. On New Dawn, Professor James Whitfield opened a museum of true galactic history. He welcomed visitors from every species, answering their questions with patience and honesty. Were you really watching over us all that time? A young Velen asked during one tour. James nodded. We were. Why did you hide? Because we were afraid. James sat down to bring himself to the young one's eye level. We were afraid that if you knew the truth, you would hate us. We were afraid that if we revealed our power, we might be tempted to misuse it. We were afraid that we were not wise enough to lead. Were those fears correct? James thought for a long moment. Some of them. When we revealed ourselves, many species did hate us. Some still do. And I think we were right to fear our own temptation. Power corrupts. Even power used for good. But we were wrong to hide. Wrong to make choices for others without their knowledge. Wrong to think that protection and partnership were the same thing. He looked at the young Velen with hope in his eyes. Your generation will be the first to grow up in a galaxy where humanity is just another species. Powerful, yes, but not hidden. Not superior. Just us. Just human. I think that is better. Do you? The young Velen considered carefully. Then slowly she nodded. I think so too. 10 years passed. The anniversary celebration filled the new assembly chamber with beings from 1,000 worlds. Music from 100 cultures blended into harmony. Food from every corner of the galaxy was shared freely. Friendships formed across boundaries that had existed for millennia. In a quiet corner of the garden, David Nash sat beside former High Speaker Torvax. The old Velen had retired from politics years ago. He spent his days now as a teacher and philosopher, sharing the hard lessons he had learned. Do you regret it? Torvax asked. All those years of hiding? All that manipulation? David was quiet for a long time. I regret the necessity. I wish we had found another way. I wish we had trusted you sooner. But the actions themselves? Every intervention saved lives. Every secret prevented wars. Every lie was told in service of peace. David sighed. But that does not make it right. It only makes it understandable. And now? David looked out at the celebration, at the beings of 1,000 worlds learning to be family. Now we learn together. That is the best any of us can do. 100 years after humanity's departure from the old council, a young human woman named Emma stood in the Galactic Archive. The vast station held the collected knowledge of every species in the galaxy. She had come to add a new entry, the official history of humanity's role in galactic civilization. The entry was brief. No single document could capture everything. But she did her best. Humanity came to the stars seeking connection. We found a galaxy divided by fear, ruled by power, paralyzed by pride. For 200 millennia, we tried to change this. First by serving, then by hiding, then by leaving, and finally by returning as equals. We succeeded not because we were wise or powerful or special. We succeeded because we never stopped believing that the galaxy could be better. We succeeded because we were not alone. This archive stands as testament to what we built together, not as humans, not as aliens, but as family. May it last for as long as there are beings who look at the stars and wonder what could be. And may those beings remember the lesson we learned so painfully, that no species, no matter how advanced, can save another. We can only walk beside them. We can only love them. And we can only hope. Emma submitted the entry and watched it merge into the ocean of no. Wedge around her. Then she turned away from the past and walked toward the future dot in the observation deck of the archive. She found her grandmother waiting. Clara Okonkwo was very old now, her dark skin lined with a century of living. But her eyes still held the same kindness they always had. "Is it done?" Clara asked. "It is done." Clara nodded slowly. "Your grandfather would be proud. David always believed this day would come. He just did not live long enough to see it." Emma took her grandmother's hand. He saw enough. He saw the galaxy start to heal. He saw species that had been enemies for millennia become friends. He saw hope. Yes. Clara smiled. He saw hope. They stood together in silence, looking out at the stars. 1,000 worlds shone in the darkness. 1,000 species lived and laughed and loved among them. "Do you think it will last?" Emma asked. Clara considered the question carefully. "Nothing lasts forever, but I think what we have built is strong. I think the galaxy has finally grown up." She squeezed her granddaughter's hand. "And I think whatever challenges come next, we will face them together, not as guardians watching from the shadows, not as masters pulling strings, but as what we always should have been, family." Emma smiled. Family. Outside, the stars burned bright. And somewhere in the vastness of space, 3 billion humans and 900 species looked up at the same sky, breathing the same hope, dreaming the same dreams. The galaxy had thought it was in control when humanity left without a word. Now, at last, they understood the truth. Control had never been the point. Love had been the point. And love, in the end, had won.